they sent some things to my home as part of the event that they wanted me to take part in and different pieces. And one of them was like, light this candle. And it smelled like popcorn for when they were talking about movies in one of the sections.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. I'm super excited to dive in today. He's the Chief Inspiration Officer of Bo Digital, and I love that title. Wayne Stanley, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me, Kirby. It's great to be here today.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. I mean, you live in the marketing space and you do that for many types of clients, if I understand. But let's start with digital marketing. That's a place where I think a lot of us are trying to understand and get better. So how can someone enhance their brand with a digital transformation?
That's a great question. It's hard these days. The digital opportunities are seemingly endless and also more chaotic than ever right now.
Yeah.
So it's hard to pick and choose, but in general, you can transform your brand by really focusing on short form video right now, whether that's, everybody wants to debate the future of TikTok here in the States or whatever that may be, but that style of video isn't going anywhere. It's what people want to consume. And it's not just a lot of folks are still thinking of it for, education, for trends, but it's also great for education. And that's where we see a lot of growth for small businesses.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I used to say, back in the day, a million years ago, when I first got into sales, it's like I would drive to an industrial park my car, and I would go into all the buildings because that's where my customers were. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that when it comes to digital, doing shorts, kind of what you said, if that's what your customers want to consume, you want to play where your customers are. And so I think that's great advice. You obviously believe in podcasts since you've taken the time today, and I appreciate that. You believe in podcasts and video to grow your brand. So what is your strategy for doing these, and what do you recommend for your clients?
My strategy for doing podcasts is that, I very much believe in the share what you know and try to fill other people's cup. And, that's my whole, the joy that I get from being Chief Inspiration Officer for Bo Digital. Yes, I own the place, but I really feel like it's my job to inspire, and I feel like I am not terrible at it. And I get joy from doing it. And so I hope that the small nuggets of information and things like that I can drop during a podcast are helpful to other small business owners. And for our customers, I say the same thing. People want to focus on the sell a lot. And so I don't come on these myself, and I don't encourage them to come on and say, use my company, use my product, use my service. Rather, I use it as like an entree into what will hopefully be a future relationship. What can you use me for? What can you learn from me? And that's what we hope our customers do the same.
Yeah, I always say it's like you want to give first, right? Provide value up front. It builds trust and integrity, but it also shows that you know what the hell you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that podcasts can be an incredible, and content in general can be an incredible way to spread that. So one of my pet peeves in the world is when I hear anything is dead. Blogs are dead, emails are dead, whatever's dead, right? And I've heard people say that email is dead, and I don't think so. But I'd kind of seen you talking about this. So how can we make emails engaging in 2025?
Yeah, I hear that all the time, and it's my number one answer when people say what's one thing I should be doing. The answer is still probably email marketing. Yeah. If you're not sure where your customers are digitally and all of that, and I think a lot of folks, as it's been harder to curate an audience on social, owning your own audience and your own community through email is really helpful for people. And I think that that's where you can find success. Again, some people are like, well, we put out an email marking our product for sale, or we talked about our service and included a testimonial or something. And it's like, we try to balance it with about a 70-30 approach these days. If 70% of the emails we send are educational, here's something that our customers can learn for their own business. And then here's 30% where we try to bring you back in with our product can help you in your business in this way, shape, or form. And that's been successful for a lot of them. It doesn't work for every industry, but it certainly works for a lot of them to try to use it as a relationship tool.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. I talk a lot about this actually, Wayne, and I talk about it being the difference between rented media and owned media.
Mm-hmm.
Like rented media obviously is traditional advertising, but it's also social media. Like, and the reason I don't own it is because if it goes away, it goes away, and I don't get a say in it. And so, I don't know that email is a great way to build an audience, but man, it is a way to strengthen your audience. And the studies I see, it's one of the best ways to convert. And so I really appreciate that 70-30 thing is something that I think makes a ton of sense. If you're giving first, right?
Exactly, exactly. Because you want them to understand that you get them, like before they can buy in to say whether your product or service is actually valuable or helpful or whatever the case may be. They want to know that you understand their business, and there's no better way than by showing that you get it beyond what you're trying to benefit financially from.
Yeah, and I also think, and again, I don't mean to go too deep into this, but I think it's also a way for you that you control how consistently you can show up to them, right?
Yes.
Whereas the algorithm doesn't always allow for that. But if you're consistent with your email, your drip or your nurture, I think it's a way for you to show up consistently too.
Yeah, and I think that's what scares people about email still sometimes, because like people come to us and say we want to do a newsletter, and I'm like, who told you you need to do a newsletter, or what does that mean to do a newsletter? Because people have these things in their mind in terms of the vehicle and the frequency when you start saying things like newsletter or a marketing email or whatever that is. And
Mhm.
I people should know that like whatever you want to do with your email marketing is whatever you want to do. There's no specific cadence. You have to figure out what works for you and your audience. Just because you say newsletter doesn't mean that it's monthly. Just because you say marketing email doesn't mean it has to be every day, every week, every like it can be whatever cadence makes sense for you. And it can I think that it would give you more freedom to let that take whatever shape that you need it to. Sometimes it might be longer or more in depth or have more multimedia or less, but like I think that people put themselves into a box with it, and that's why it's easier to just say it's dead when you're scared of it.
I like that. That's really good. Okay. All right. Final question for you. I've heard you say that we need to quote adapt to the new normal. And so how do we do that when it comes to hosting online events?
People miss out. I think understand this a little bit more because we're a fully remote company and we have been since 2017. And so we focus on the connection of people in a really important way with our own internal culture. But I think with online events and getting used to that, whether there's so much talk about people coming back to the office and all of that, but especially for a lot of organizations that relied on a long time for webinar revenue and that sort of thing, like the way that people learn online, the way that they interact online is totally different. And like everything, my theme of this interview is definitely relationships. And so they want to have time for that connection. They have to have time rather than it just being a lecture where someone turns something on. I talk a lot about how a lot of online events are not really events, they're broadcasts. And if you are just putting
Mm.
out a broadcast where you're asking someone to sit still and watch whatever you're feeding them, even if you've got great things, you've got a magician and a singer and a serious speech and a motivational thing and whatever else, and all of that to try to keep their interest, it's still a broadcast. You have to think about the participatory effects. Or, I participated in one recently where they sent some things to my home as part of the event that they wanted me to take part in different pieces. And one of them was like, light this candle, and it smelled like popcorn for when they were talking about movies in one of the sections. Like all of the senses that you have when you're at an event, you have to figure out how to do that. And that's not possible for every budget, but you have to figure out if we can't get all the way there, if you can't send a candle to all of your attendees that you may have for your budgeting, what can you do? If you can get 10% of the way there, what would that look like? And I think that's where the adapting to the new normal looks different for everybody, but you can do it on any budget.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. And it's funny because it's like I feel like people are like, I'm either all in on in-person events or all in on, and I just think that different goals and different events can make sense in different ways. And so I appreciate your perspective on that.
Yeah, of course.
So Wayne, where can people find out more information about you guys?
Of course, they can learn more about Bo Digital at bodigital.com, or they can connect with me on LinkedIn with Wayne Stanley.
Awesome. Well, Wayne, this has been fun. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do it again sometime. Okay.
That'd be great. Thanks, Kirby.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.